All right, welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're jumping into something, well, something I think a lot of us will recognize in people we know, maybe even in ourselves. We're doing a deep dive into the psychological profile of the number six. And we're not just talking about, a few personality quirks here. We're really going to get into their unique experience of duty, of care, and the sort of silent heavy weight they seem to carry around every single day.
It's a profile that is so recognizable and at the same time really profoundly misunderstood. I mean, the source material gets straight to the heart of it.
Yeah.
A six's world, their entire life, it revolves around responsibility, care, love, protection, harmony, stewardship. But the key insight, the thing that really defines their whole emotional world, is that a six is, and I'm quoting here, born with an internal sense of duty.
Wow, born with it. That's a really key phrase, isn't it? It's not something they just pick up or learn.
Exactly. It's innate. It means they don't just see the world, they feel personally responsible for making sure it stays stable. And that impulse is precisely what makes them the most reliable person you know. They're the one with the plan, the person everyone leans on. But, and this is the big but, that reliability has a cost. It makes them, and I love this phrase the sources used, quietly exhausted.
Quietly exhausted. I mean, that just nails the paradox perfectly. They're always on, always working, but they never complain about it, so everyone around them just assumes they're fine.
Precisely. They just keep going.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Our mission for this deep dive is to really understand the scope of this internal burden of care that the six carries so silently. And maybe more importantly, figure out what they have to master to build a strong life that doesn't demand, total self-erasure.
It's such an essential journey for them to go on because that exhaustion, it isn't just physical, it's a mental burnout from being on watch all the time.
So let's get into that inner world. What's actually going on inside their head? What is that constant internal monologue that fuels this endless obligation?
The inner world of a six is it's a constant awareness of potential breakdown. The voice in their head isn't making suggestions, it's giving commands. It's a rapid fire loop of things like, I should handle this before it gets worse, or if I don't step in right now, things will fall apart. And the really heavy one is, people are depending on me, I can't let them down.
That sounds, gosh, that's less of a personality trait and more like their entire nervous system is just on high alert 24/7, like a self-imposed full-time security detail.
That is the perfect analogy. And we see that even when they're supposedly resting, watching a movie or something, a part of their brain is always on. It's always monitoring, planning, anticipating needs. Their nervous system isn't just reacting. The source material uses this great phrase, it's tuned to care and protection. It's proactive.
Yeah. And a system that's always on standby is going to burn way more energy than one that knows how to power down. That has to be rooted in some really deep, powerful fears.
Oh, absolutely. This constant drive to keep everything stable and secure, it comes from these profound fears of neglect, of instability, and often the deepest one of letting other people down. The motivation isn't for praise or glory. It's for emotional and structural safety for everyone in their circle.
It's so interesting how that personal fear of being neglected sort of transforms into this mission to make sure no one else ever feels that way.
It's the ultimate act of protective projection.
So if that's the frantic, high-alert inner world, how does that actually look on the outside? Because to everyone else, a six doesn't seem frantic at all. They look like the rock.
Oh, absolutely. They project immense strength. To everybody around them, they just seem incredibly reliable, deeply caring, warm, protective, so responsible. They are the person who shows up, period. You always hear people say to them, you're the strong one, or thank goodness you're here. People rely on them because they just embody certainty.
And this is where the disconnect is, right? This is the really interesting part. That contrast between the pillar everyone sees and what's actually happening inside.
Right. What no one sees is how much the six carries silently. They don't see the mental gymnastics, the worst case scenario planning that happens before every single helpful act. Their help is never casual. Their mind is constantly seeking stability. It's always thinking in terms of duty, consequences, care, and what's right, not what's easy or what's fun.
They're essentially running a constant high-stakes risk assessment in their head all the time, everywhere they go.
Exactly. They walk into a room and their brain is immediately assessing what needs fixing, who here needs help, and what's the worst thing that could happen if I don't get involved. That's why they're so indispensable, but it's also the very thing that wears them down. That level of anticipation is just not sustainable.
I can imagine they must have some pretty strong dislikes then. What kind of things really disrupt their whole system?
Chaos, first and foremost. And then irresponsibility, which to them feels like a form of negligence. and emotional coldness, because that threatens the harmony they work so hard to create.
So, okay, we have this internal engine. How does that translate to the real world? Like at work, where do they actually thrive?
They need roles where that sense of duty is.
Well, it's an asset. They need a job with service, deep responsibility, a focus on people, and long-term impact. So think about leadership roles where care is important, education, healthcare, counseling, management, community organizing, places where they are a stabilizing force for a system or for people.
And the flip side must be true, too. There must be environments that just crush them.
Oh, absolutely. They really struggle in irresponsible environments, and especially under chaotic leadership. I mean, if you're putting all your energy into holding a structure together and your boss is just constantly creating new messes.
It must feel like your effort is just being taken for granted, wasted.
Exactly. To a 6, that kind of leadership isn't just inefficient. It's a direct threat to the safety they're trying to build. That makes perfect sense. What about their relationship with money? Security is such a big theme. Is money about freedom for them or something else?
For the 6, money is security, it's safety, and above all, it's stability for the people they love. And that drive leads to some very, well, altruistic but also self-limiting financial choices. A 6 will almost always prioritize others financially. They'll delay their own goals, and, this is critical, they often feel guilty focusing on wealth for themselves.
So they equate having personal financial goals with being selfish, which goes against their whole identity as a caregiver.
That's the conflict right there. They see resources as something to be managed and secured for the group, not something you pile up for yourself.
So what's the big mental shift they have to make there? What's the lesson?
The key lesson is that stability supports care, it doesn't contradict it. Building their own financial security is the only way to make sure their care is sustainable in the long run. They have to see their savings as a safety net for everyone, not just a personal luxury.
Okay, and what about relationships? How does this whole duty framework play out with the people they love? How do they show love?
Well, their love is very active. It's a verb. It's showing up, doing, protecting, providing. They're the one who notices your tire is low, who researches the best doctor, who will absolutely drive you to the airport at 4 a.m. That action is how they prove their love.
So they show love by being the reliable one, the strong one.
Exactly. But all that output creates these huge, often unspoken needs. They need appreciation for all that silent effort. They need reciprocity. And they need to feel emotionally safe. They need to know they're loved for who they are, not just for what they do for everyone.
But that has to create some struggles, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're always the rock, there isn't much room to be vulnerable.
That's the crisis point. They are terrible at asking for help. And they really struggle with letting others carry the weight and with releasing control. Their whole identity is wrapped up in being the one who handles things.
So if they ask for help, it feels like they've failed.
It feels like failure. And when they get hurt or feel that instability creeping in, they tend to do one of 3 things. They either overfunction, do even more to get control back, or they become controlling, micromanaging everything, or they'll withdraw emotionally. They'll pull back the vulnerable part of themselves, but they'll still be performing all the duties.
And that underlying fear must just be massive, that old fear of instability.
It is. The deep fear is abandonment and instability. If I stop doing all this, will I still be needed? Will everyone leave? Their love is an investment in stability.
So we have to talk about the shadow side. What happens when it all becomes too much, when that quiet exhaustion finally wins?
Yeah, this is when that beautiful sense of care can curdle. It becomes toxic. They get resentful. They start to control situations instead of actually supporting them. They overgive until they're completely empty, and then, crucially, they start to martyr themselves. They make sure everyone knows just how much they're sacrificing.
That's the moment care becomes obligation. That's the core of the burnout.
It is. Their care turns into obligation. They stop choosing to help out of love and start having to help out of duty and resentment. And then they feel completely unappreciated because the energy behind it has soured.
Wow. That sounds like a really awful place to be mentally. And this is where that path to maturity becomes so important. The healthy 6 has learned that love doesn't mean you have to erase yourself.
It's the ultimate act of courage for them, really. The mature 6 learns to care, but with boundaries. They learn to lead, but without rescuing people from their own mistakes. They actually learn how to receive support, how to rest without guilt, and they build systems that don't need their hands on them 24/7.
So the 6 on their own just burns out. But an integrated 6, one who knows their limits, they become a truly sustainable pillar.
Absolutely. Their strength is so much greater when they share the load. We see this when they interact with other profiles. With a 1, they create grounded leadership. With a 9, it becomes this deeply compassionate service. It's about distributing that duty.
That's the key, isn't it? Moving from this internalized duty to a chosen external responsibility. So for anyone listening right now who's thinking, oh my God, that's me, what are the key takeaways? What do they need to master to get out of this cycle?
It really boils down to 5.
Yeah.
5 vital lessons. These are the shifts that can take a 6 from being that silently struggling hero to a truly integrated pillar of strength.
Okay, let's go through them.
First one is huge. Responsibility must be chosen. If you take something on because you feel you have to, you've already started the resentment clock, you have to choose it deliberately.
Right, so it's not just a reflex. It has to be a conscious choice.
Precisely. Second, boundaries protect love. They don't restrict it. A good boundary is like a fence that lets the garden inside thrive. It's not a wall.
And the third one hits that core exhaustion right on the head. Rest prevents resentment.
This one is so critical. For a Link 6, rest feels lazy. It feels selfish. They have to completely reframe it. Rest is a strategic defense against martyrdom. It's essential maintenance.
That's a total reframe, isn't it? If your job is to protect, then resting is just. It's a duty you have to your own system.
Exactly. The fourth lesson is control weakens connection. When you micromanage people, you're not trusting them. And that pushes them away, which undermines the very stability you're trying to create.
And the fifth one, which sounds like maybe the hardest of all.
Support must flow both ways. They have to get as good at receiving as they are at giving. If they only give, they teach everyone around them that they don't need help. And that guarantees they won't get it when they need it most.
Understanding this profile just feels so key to managing that deep impulse to self-erase for other people. It gives you the language for that silent struggle.
It really does. It illuminates that conflict between the strong exterior and the vulnerable interior. They are the strong one, but that strength can be very brittle if it's not cared for.
This deep dive really has reinforced that huge gap, hasn't it? Between the strong protector everyone sees and the quietly exhausted person on the inside.
It does. And that leaves us with a final thought for you to take away. If a 6's entire nervous system is fundamentally tuned to protection and vigilance, like a high-alert security system, then how can prioritizing rest be viewed not as a selfish indulgence or a failure of duty, but as the single most important act of self-protection they can perform to make sure their care is sustainable? Maybe rest is just the necessary system reset that guarantees structural integrity.
You have to let the security system power down for maintenance. Wow. That is a powerful and necessary thought to end on. Thank you for walking us through this. We'll be back next time for another deep dive.